The desolate landscape rolled by outside my transport vehicle. An endless canvas of rust-colored dirt and twisted metal skeletons that used to be cities. Perfect scenery for contemplating one's life choices. Like why I, Novak, agreed to be a courier in this post-apocalyptic hellscape when I could have pursued my childhood dream of dying young. Approaching Nova Solis. ETA 5 minutes. Chirped the vehicle's AI in that infuriatingly chipper voice reserved for machines that don't understand human suffering. I grunted in acknowledgement, adjusting my dust mask as the gleaming spires of the last city on Earth appeared on the horizon. Nova Solis, humanity's final masterpiece. A fully automated, self-sustaining metropolis built to house thousands, yet occupied by exactly one person. No one knows why. Well, someone knows. Someone always knows. But that someone isn't me, and definitely isn't Eleanor Reed, the city's sole resident who seems as confused by her situation as I am by my continued existence. The massive gates of Nova Solis opened as I approached, recognizing my vehicle's signature. Inside was a stark contrast to the wasteland outside. Immaculate streets, perfectly maintained buildings, lush gardens, and absolutely no people. Except for Eleanor, of course. She was waiting at the central plaza as always, wearing one of her trademark vintage sundresses. This one a cheery yellow that matched her blonde hair. Eleanor Reed, mid-30s, looks like she stepped out of an old advertisement for a perfect life that no longer exists. Always smiling, always slightly confused. "Finn," she called, waving enthusiastically as if we were old friends and not a weird footnote in humanity's epilogue. Right on schedule. I parked and began unloading the monthly supplies, mostly luxury items and personal requests since the city produced its own essentials. "One delivery for the last person on Earth," I said, handing her the manifest. "Sign here, initial there, and promise not to go insane from isolation on the dotted line." She laughed, taking the tablet. "I'm hardly isolated with all this company." She gestured to the empty city around us. This was our routine. I made sarcastic comments about her bizarre living situation. She responded with vague non-answers that made me question her grip on reality. We both pretended this was all perfectly normal. "So how's life in your private metropolis? Still enjoying having an entire shopping district to yourself?" Eleanor smiled that same unsettling smile. "It's peaceful. Yesterday I went to the East Side Park and read by the lake. The ducks are thriving." "Ducks," I repeated. "In a city built after most animals went extinct." "They're very realistic," she admitted. "Sometimes I forget they're not real." This was the thing about Eleanor that kept me up at night. She knew her situation was abnormal, knew the birds and small animals in the city were advanced robotics, knew she was living in an elaborate stage set. But she never questioned why. Never seemed to wonder who built all this just for her or what they wanted. "Don't you ever get curious?" I asked, breaking our usual script. "About why you're here? Why someone built an entire city just for you?" Something flickered across her face, fear, maybe, or confusion. "The architects had their reasons," she said, reciting what sounded like a practiced line. "Nova Solis is humanity's fresh start. Humanity is one person? That's a hell of a population decline. Others will join eventually," she said with that same vacant certainty. "When the time is right." I'd heard all this before, but something felt different today. Maybe it was the way she glanced nervously at the central tower or how she kept checking her wristwatch. As I finished unloading the supplies, my communicator buzzed. Director Harlow, my charming boss at the Restoration Initiative, appeared on screen looking typically impatient. "Novak, status report?" "Delivery in progress," I replied. "No issues." "Good. The package I mentioned, was it in the cargo?" I patted my jacket pocket where a small data drive sat heavy as a stone. "Affirmative. Will deliver directly to the central system as instructed." "Excellent. Remember, standard protocols. No unnecessary interaction with the resident. No overnight stays. No questions." His eyes narrowed. "The last courier who got too curious is enjoying a new assignment mining helium-3 on the dark side of the moon. No questions, got it. I'm the perfect and curious idiot, just ask my ex-wife." Harlow didn't appreciate my humor. Few people did these days. Apocalypses really kill comedy. "Just do your job, Novak." Harlow out. Eleanor pretended not to have overheard, but I caught her watching me with unusual intensity. So, I said, grabbing the mysterious data drive, I need to upload this to your central system. Mind showing me the way? I seem to have forgotten since last month. Of course. Follow me. She led me through spotless streets lined with shops displaying goods no one would ever buy, restaurants with tables no one would sit at, and entertainment venues that would never entertain. The sheer waste of it all was staggering. Who builds a fully functional city for one person? And why? The central tower housed Nova Solis's primary computer systems. As we rode the elevator up, I casually asked, ever been curious what's on these drives I deliver? Eleanor stiffened slightly. The architects send what's needed for the city's operation. Right, the mysterious architects. Any chance you've met them? Get a Christmas card maybe. She didn't answer, just led me to the central console room. As I plugged in the drive, I noticed something odd, a small camera hidden in the ceiling corner, its lens focused directly on Eleanor. Not the console, not the room in general. Her specifically. Someone was watching her. But why? While the data transferred, I casually wandered the room, spotting 3 more surveillance devices. This wasn't city security, this was targeted monitoring. All done, I announced, pocketing the empty drive. Same time next month then? Eleanor nodded, but as we headed back to the elevator, she did something unprecedented. She touched my arm and leaned close. The ducks told me something yesterday, she whispered. They said I should look beneath the surface. Do you think machines can go mad, Finn? Before I could answer, she straightened up and resumed her usual pleasant expression as we entered the elevator, which had a camera pointed right at us. I returned to my vehicle deep in thought. In 5 years of deliveries, Eleanor had never broken character like that. And those surveillance devices weren't standard city equipment. Someone was watching her. Someone was delivering mysterious data packages monthly. Someone had built an entire city for one person. I made a decision then that would likely earn me a one-way ticket to that lunar mining colony. I was going to stay overnight in Nova Solis and find out what the hell was really going on. As I drove away from the city gates, I knew I'd be back after dark. Because there's only one thing more powerful than fear of consequences, and that's the curse of human curiosity. Well, that and the promise of a proper shower in Eleanor's guest bathroom, because apocalypse hygiene is basically an oxymoron. Breaking into the last city on Earth was embarrassingly easy. For a marvel of modern engineering, Nova Solis had surprisingly lax security for anyone already in the database. I simply drove back after sunset and the gates opened like I was expected. The city at night was eerily beautiful. Streetlights illuminated empty avenues, fountains danced in deserted plazas, and automated cleaning bots quietly went about their business, maintaining perfection for an audience of one. I parked near Eleanor's residential building, a penthouse in the city center, because if you're the last person on Earth, why not live in luxury? Finn. Eleanor appeared in the lobby, confusion evident. You're not supposed to be here after hours. I forgot something important, I lied. The satisfaction of getting answers to my questions. She glanced nervously at a nearby security camera. We should talk inside. Her apartment was as perfect as the rest of the city, stylish, comfortable, and utterly impersonal, like a hotel room someone had lived in for years without leaving a mark. The architects are watching, she said quietly once we were inside. They're always watching. Who are these architects? The Restoration Initiative? Some shadow government? Eleanor paced the room. I don't know. I just know they built this place for me. They leave messages sometimes in the city systems. Instructions. Updates on the outside world. And you never questioned why? Why build all this for one person? I did at first, she admitted. But asking questions makes the headaches start. Headaches? She nodded. Terrible ones. And sometimes I lose time. I'll be in the middle of thinking about the why of everything, and suddenly it's hours later and I can't remember what happened. That sounded suspiciously like conditioning or perhaps something worse. How long have you been here, Eleanor? She frowned. 5 years, 3 months, and 17 days. The exact time since Nova Solis was completed. The exact time I'd been making deliveries. And before that? The confusion on her face deepened. I was selected. For my compatibility. My psychological profile. Selected from where? By whom? She pressed her hands to her temples. It hurts to remember. I'd seen this before in my previous career as a psychologist specializing in trauma before the world went to hell. Blocked memories, pain responses to specific thoughts, classic signs of memory tampering. Eleanor, I think someone's been messing with your head. And I think those data packages I've been delivering might be part of it. She looked up sharply. The ducks told me to look beneath. I thought they meant metaphorically, but what if? She moved to a seemingly normal wall panel and pressed a specific sequence. The panel slid open, revealing a maintenance tunnel. How did you know about this? I asked, impressed. The cleaning bots use these passages. I've been mapping them for years. She grabbed a flashlight. Coming? The maintenance tunnels ran like veins beneath the city's surface, eventually leading us to a heavily secured door marked Central Core, authorized personnel only. I've never found a way past this, Eleanor said. I examined the security panel. Lucky for us, courier authorization seems to work everywhere. I pressed my ID badge against the scanner and the door unlocked with a satisfying click. Inside was a revelation, a massive control center humming with technology, displaying feeds from hundreds of cameras throughout the city. Every moment of Eleanor's life for the past 5 years recorded and analyzed. But that wasn't the most disturbing discovery. At the center of the room stood a medical pod similar to those used for critical care during the resource wars. Inside was a body, Eleanor's body, connected to a web of life support systems. The Eleanor beside me stared at her doppelganger in shock. What am I? I moved to the central console, bypassing security with my courier credentials. The files were disturbing in their clinical detachment. Project Phoenix, Subject E7, Eleanor Reed android functioning within expected parameters. Emotional responses consistent with human baseline. Memory integration successful following monthly updates. Recommend continuing observation of adaptive behaviors in isolated urban environment. I turned to Eleanor, the Eleanor standing beside me whose face had gone completely blank. You're an android, I said gently. A very advanced one. And her. She pointed at the woman in the pod. The original Eleanor Reed. They're using her brain patterns, her memories, to make you authentic. More files revealed the horrifying truth. After the collapse, Earth's remaining elites had fled to orbital habitats, leaving the dying planet behind. But they needed to know if Earth could ever be habitable again, how humans would adapt psychologically to the ruined world. Rather than risk their own lives, they built Nova Solis as a testing ground, with Eleanor as their unwitting guinea pig. They're watching how you cope with isolation, I explained. How a human mind functions in a post-apocalyptic world with all physical needs met but no social contact. The monthly data packages I've been delivering are memory updates and psychological adjustments. I'm an experiment, she whispered. A lab rat in a very elaborate maze. We both are, came a voice from the doorway. Director Harlow stood there, flanked by security drones. Though you've performed admirably, Finn. Your curiosity was anticipated, if not quite on this timeline. I stepped protectively in front of Eleanor. What are you talking about? The real experiment was never just about Eleanor. It was about human interaction in isolated conditions. You were carefully selected as her courier, a former psychologist with a troubled past and just enough moral flexibility to be useful. Your growing curiosity about her situation was monitored and encouraged. You used me to test her, I realized with growing horror. And her to test you, Harlow corrected. Every courier before you simply made their deliveries and left. You were the first to actually care about her well-being. Quite the breakthrough. Eleanor's expression hardened. So nothing about me is real? Not my thoughts, not my feelings. On the contrary, Harlow replied. Your thoughts and feelings are entirely real, they're just based on parameters we established. The question was never if an android could think, but if it could evolve beyond its programming when presented with ethical dilemmas. Like right now, I said, understanding dawning. This is all part of your sick experiment. Harlow smiled coldly. The habitats need to know if synthetic companions can make moral choices before they invest in mass production. The resources required are substantial. With sudden clarity, I understood everything. There's no restoration initiative, is there? No plan to resettle Earth. You're just mining it for resources to support the habitats while running twisted psychological experiments. The Earth is dead, Finn. We're just making use of the corpse. Harlow signaled the drones. Now, protocol dictates a full memory reset for both subject and observer when experiment parameters are breached. Eleanor will forget you, you'll forget her, and we'll begin a new iteration. The drones advanced, but Eleanor stepped forward, placing herself between them and me. No, she said simply. Harlow looked amused. You don't have a choice in this matter, E7. My name is Eleanor, she replied, and your experiment just proved something you didn't anticipate. I can choose. She moved with inhuman speed, smashing the nearest drone before it could react. I tackled the second one, using my courier badge to short-circuit its systems. Harlow backed toward the exit. This changes nothing. The habitats control all supply lines. You'll starve down here eventually. Eleanor smiled, a genuine expression nothing like her programmed pleasantness. Maybe, but I'd rather starve as myself than live as your puppet. I grabbed Harlow's access card as Eleanor sealed the exits, trapping him in the corridor between security doors. What now? I asked her. She turned to the original Eleanor in the medical pod. First, we wake her up. She deserves to know what's been done in her name. Then we see if 3 people are enough to start rebuilding. 3 people and a bunch of robot ducks, I added. Don't forget the cleaning bots, she said with a smirk. As we began the process of reviving the original Eleanor, I couldn't help but laugh at the cosmic irony. The last city on Earth, built for 1 person, was about to become home to 3, a disillusioned courier, an awakened human, and an android who had discovered her humanity. Not exactly the fresh start the architects had planned, but maybe, just maybe, it was the one Earth deserved.